Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is a guide for you to get to round 100 in Ashes of the Damned. This has the potential to give you 2 Dark Ops challenges, which are Invincible, which is survive to round 50 without getting downed, and another round, which is reach round 100. Now, in order to get there, we've actually got some options for how we're going to play, and I'm going to show multiple strats in this video. The faster strat, which is a little bit more hairy, I would say, will get you to round 100 in about 3 hours, whereas the slower strat is less chaotic and will be obviously slower. So to start with, before you jump into your game, there's a little bit of prep that we need to do in your loadout and augments. So for your loadout, the only recommendation I have is to just use a weapon with a suppressor to get a little bit of extra salvage, but honestly, this is entirely optional because there's so many other sources of salvage in the map. And once we get to the strat, we're gonna be using wonder weapons anyway, so the only other weapon recommendation I'd have is that you'll want to use a weapon that's half decent for doing the wonder weapon quest. Then for gobbles, I'd say if you've got a perker and a wonder bar and a hidden power to use, that is gonna make your run a lot quicker, but it's absolutely not essential to use any gobbles here. And then in your augments, Vulture Aid should have Picky Eater applied, which is going to give you a higher chance of dropping your current equipment, which is great for getting Casimir's back. You'll want Ether Shroud with the extra charge minor augment, and if you've got the option for it, and it's okay if you don't, but if you've got the option to equip 2 minor augments for Ether Shroud, then I'd also turn on Extension here. On Speed Cola, we're going to turn on Supercharged to charge our field upgrade faster, and on Quick Revive, we're going to either use Dying Wish, or we're going to turn on Equivalent Exchange, which is crazy strong in this game, because if you get downed, you can revive yourself 3 times and keep all your perks, crucially, which is crazy. However, later in the rounds, you're going to run into the issue where it's going to be difficult to deal enough damage to get yourself back up, and that's why Dying Wish is still probably a better option for some people. So those are my general augment recommendations, but I do have 1 or 2 essentials for the individual strats. So for the quick strat, I really recommend Reactive Armor. That's the Jug augment that causes zombies to be stunned whenever one of your plates break. And I'd also suggest Vulture Aid's Armomatic augment, and I'll explain why these are so useful when we showcase the strat. For the slower strat, I think Stamina Up having Free Faller is definitely a good idea unless you're using the auto roll setting to prevent death when falling, which I've already talked about in my tips videos. If you haven't seen those tips videos, they're linked in the description and in the corner of the screen. You should absolutely be keeping track of those for generally improving your gameplay. And finally, I would potentially switch Reactive Armor over to Probiotic so that you've got a bit of extra health. So let's jump into the game itself now. This is gonna be the same whether you're doing the quick strat or the slow strat. You're just gonna turn on the Rampage Inducer as soon as you spawn if you feel confident, but if not, then it's really not that big a deal. And you're gonna start your game as normal by doing things like using Toxic Growth on the spores here after you've picked up the Fumigator to get yourself some early Pack-a-Punch levels. And then after a couple of rounds of that, you're gonna go ahead and switch over to Ether Shroud. You're gonna turn on the power generators. You're gonna unlock Pack-a-Punch, maybe do a couple of extra spore defenses if you really feel like getting some extra salvage earned. And you're also going to need the Necrofluid Gauntlet, so get started with that quest. If you need a quick refresher on what those steps are, you need to kill Uber Klaus, bring the stabilizer chip to Klaus, break him out using stun grenades, bring him to this panel in the Cosmodrome, he'll break it open, you can do the scan, then you can pick up the canister, bring that to the 3 power generators, and then once filled in each of them, bring it downstairs in the farm to the cube, and then enter the code on the cube that you can see on the 3 roofs in the farm area, and do the short lockdown. Now, if you're confused about any of the things I've just said, because I went very quickly, I've got a full guide explaining exactly how this all works in much more detail on my channel, linked in the description and in the corner of the screen right now. Once you've got the gauntlet, this is a good time to turn on the Rampage Inducer if you haven't already. And I'd also recommend you get it Pack-a-Punched as soon as possible because that's going to give you access to its little explosion that you can do. And you're actually going to want to work your way towards tier 3 PAP on this as well, but obviously just do that gradually over time as you also need to be buying your perks. You also need to make sure you've got tier 3 armor, so do that as soon as possible. And I'd say once you're well on the way towards this and you've got 4 perks, I'd start hoarding in the spawn area because it's just so open. Now, during this early game, you'll be able to continuously buy perks sort of gradually as you play through the rounds. And I'd recommend, if your weapons are dealing enough damage and you're able to kill the zombies just fine, that you really do prioritize using that Wonder Fizz machine and buying all the perks in the game, because then as soon as a TED task spawns in around the map, I would 100% recommend you go and do it. Every single time, go and do the TED task. The reason for this is it's going to give you perma perks when you complete it if you've already got all the perks in the game, and those are going to be very useful for your run. So let's talk now about the quick strat, and then we'll show the slightly slower strat. You can start this actually fairly early in your game. There isn't really an initial round, which is like the round to start it on, so long as you've got your Pack-a-Punched Gauntlet. The way this one will work is you'll be camping on this ledge in Judgment Square in the Ashwood area, right next to the VS Recon wall buy. You position yourself so you can easily see both the stairs and the ledge, and then you spam Wonder Weapon shots on the stairs and the walkway, and then press your left trigger to explode the shots. My recommendation is you do between 3 and 5 shots, and you won't want to do many more than that, otherwise the zombies have enough time to get a good amount of damage on you, which gets really scary, especially in the later rounds. And the reason we wanted to put on reactive armor on Jug before is that when a zombie manages to break one of your armor pieces, it will be stun locked in front of you and mean that the other zombies behind it cannot swarm you, which is really nice. Now I think about it, it also might be nice to have Electric Cherry on during this as well, but I actually haven't tested using Cherry. Now we also recommended Armormatic on Vulture Aid, that's the final major. That's super helpful for this because when Wonder Weapon shots are close to drops, such as armor plates, salvage, etc., those shots will actually drag the power-ups towards you. And so with Armormatic, your shots are closer to armor plates and will keep repairing your armor automatically for you without having to hold down Y or triangle. Now, if you don't have that augment unlocked, I would suggest holding down the rearmor button while shooting when getting to the later rounds, as your armor will deplete very quickly. It's very scary. And I'd also suggest that you actually research that augment during the run, as you could potentially then just save and quit, equip the augment, and then load back into your game and have it for the remainder of your game if you don't have it unlocked when you first start. Now, this strat's all well and good on zombies, but it doesn't work on Zersa, right? So what do you do with Zersas? Well, you're going to throw either a Casimir, or you're going to pop an Ether Shroud and focus the bear with your hand cannon score streak, which you can craft at a crafting bench. This should kill it in 3 shots, and if you throw the Casimir directly on the stairs below you, there's a chance that that's enough to kill the Zersa without even having to use the hand cannon as well. Now, once you've used all your hand cannon bullets, you're going to want to make sure you can save a zombie in one of the following rounds to grab yourself a new hand cannon from the crafting table. And the good news about Ravager rounds is there's no need to switch the strat up here. You can just do the same thing. Or if you have a powerful secondary like a ray gun, for example, you can spam that in front of yourself for a quicker fire rate and take the Ravagers down that way. This strat is completely viable to get to round 100. It's just a bit scary. And if you want to go further than round 100, I think this strat is going to get too overwhelming and you're going to want to switch over to the other, slightly slower strat. So for this one, before you start the strat, you need to take Tessie to Van Dorn Farm and leave her there so that we can teleport into the vehicle during the strat. I know that sounds crazy, but I promise it's going to work out, bear with me. Then at the beginning of the round, you're going to use the saw trap at Ashwood, and then once that Ashwood trap has finished, you're going to use the teleport pad by Tessie's garage to teleport into Tessie, and that's obviously going to take you straight to the farm. This is why it's nice to have the free fall augment on stamina up so you don't die of full damage while you're trying to get to that teleporter next to the garage. Then when you're in the farm, you're going to use Tessie for a bit to ram zombies until she's about to break, and then hop out and head towards the saw blade trap. You can also use the abomination upgrade on Tessie to use the lasers to get some extra kills here. You could also, if you really wanted to, make sure that you've got the Wunderwaffe attachment on it, because I think that shoots autonomously even if you're not in it in solo, but I would need to double check on that one. I'm not actually 100% sure. It's also a lot of Easter egg progress to get there, so probably not worth doing unless you happen to be also doing the egg. So, like I said, we're going to go to the saw blade trap now in the farm. We're going to use that. Be very careful not to go too far away from it, otherwise the zombies will still path to you. And this should be enough kills to end the round once finished. but if it isn't, you're then going to use the jump pad to return to Ashwood, and you're going to repeat the cycle using that next Sawblade trap because it will be off cooldown by that point. The nice thing about this strat is Tessie should repair herself while you're using the 2 traps, so you won't need to worry about repairs, and you can then just keep using it to ram the zombies and blast the zombies each round to get a couple of extra kills. Now, when a Xersa spawns in, once again, you're going to attempt to kill it with a Casimir or with your hand cannon. And also, a reminder that Napalm Burst is strong against Xersas, so if you've got Napalm, especially with big game on, that might help a little bit as well if you're using a bullet weapon as your alternative to your gauntlet. And then for Ravager rounds, it's just Sawblade traps, because those things absolutely suck up the Ravagers. It's amazing. And one warning I guess I'd give you about this strat is you do not get field upgrade charge from Sawblade trap kills, so it's a really good idea to shoot some exploding wonder weapon shots at the zombies as they run towards the trap, and that's going to help you get a little bit more of that charge going. But obviously, if your field upgrades are fully charged, you don't need to do this. Also, as you're going to those faster rounds, PhD Flopper Augments, PhD Slider, and Tribologist are really good paired together, as they're going to give you a little bit more cracked movement when running from Sawblade traps to the teleporter jump pad, but these are not essential. And also, a little pro tip for using the wonder weapon is remember that you can recall those barbs to yourself if you fire them out, and that is going to heal you or potentially overheal you. So it's a decent idea to get in the habit of doing that here and there just for the free overheals, and then focusing on doing the rest of the strat as normal. Now, if you're still having trouble, I mentioned earlier, I've got one of those tips videos that walks through a bunch of ways you can improve at zombies so that these sorts of strats become a lot more easy for you. And that's linked on the screen right now. And also on screen is the link to my main quest Easter egg guide. And it would be absolutely crazy, but a really fun idea if you tried to do the Easter egg during your game and then you did the boss fight on round 101, so you get a round 100 plus completion. Like, that would be absolutely wild. So click through to that Easter egg guide now and give that a shot if you like pain. I'll see you there.